December 7, 1941. 8:42 a.m. Pearl Harbor, Oahu. The air still smells like gasoline and burning paint. Black smoke rolls across the water in thick, oily clouds, turning the Hawaiian morning into twilight. Pieces of metal hiss as they fall into the harbor. Somewhere, ammunition keeps cooking off, dull pops then sharper cracks, like the sky itself refusing to calm down. A sailor stumbles barefoot across Ford Island, his white uniform stained black. Another man is screaming for a corpsman. Sirens won't stop. And the water is on fire. Flames drift across the surface in long orange streaks, fed by ruptured fuel tanks. Battleship Row looks less like a naval base and more like a graveyard. USS Arizona is gone, split open, her bow buried in the mud. Oklahoma lies upside down like a dead animal. Men are still trapped inside, hammering. The sound carries. Bang, bang, bang. You can almost feel it in your chest. Above the harbor, the second wave of Japanese aircraft is already disappearing into the clouds, their engines fading into a distant hum. The attack lasted less than 2 hours. Less than 2 hours to cripple the most powerful navy in the Pacific. Or so they think. On the bridge of the Japanese carrier Akagi, hundreds of miles north of Oahu, Commander Mitsuo Fuchida lowers his binoculars and exhales. Success, he mutters. Below him, deck crews cheer. Pilots slap each other on the back as they climb out of their cockpits, faces smeared with oil and sweat. Rising sun flags flutter in the warm wind. Mechanics swarm the aircraft like ants, checking bullet holes, refueling, rearming. They believe they've just changed history. They believe America's fleet is dead. Fuchida sends the coded message. Tora, Tora, Tora. Complete surprise achieved. Admiral Chuichi Nagumo stands stiffly, hands clasped behind his back. He studies the reports arriving from returning aircrews. Battleships hit. Airfields burning. Hangars destroyed. Every line confirms the same story. Total victory. Yet something nags at him. Something missing. He turns to a staff officer. The carriers, he says quietly, were they sighted? The officer flips through reconnaissance notes. His finger traces the page, stops. No confirmed sightings, sir. Nagumo frowns. That shouldn't be possible. American carriers are the real threat, not the battleships. Battleships are symbols. Carriers are teeth. Where are they? Back at Pearl Harbor, Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey stands on the shattered deck of Ford Island and stares at the smoke. He's executive officer of the carrier enterprise. Or at least he would be. If she were here. But she is. She's somewhere out in the Pacific, returning from Wake Island after delivering Marine fighters. By accident, pure scheduling coincidence. Had the timing been different by 12 hours, Enterprise would be right here, tied up alongside the others. Burning. Instead, there's just empty water where she normally rests. An empty berth. A ghost outline. McCluskey feels something strange, not relief exactly, more like disbelief. They missed us. He looks out at the harbor and realizes something terrifying. If the Japanese new Enterprise was gone, they would come hunting. Far to the north, Japanese scout planes begin widening their search patterns. Thin gray float planes peel away from cruisers and battleships, engines buzzing low over endless ocean. Their orders are simple. Find the American carriers. Destroy them. Because every Japanese strategist knows the truth. A fleet without carriers is helpless. But carriers without a fleet. Still deadly. Still mobile. Still alive. From the cockpit of one scout plane, the Pacific stretches empty in every direction. Just waves, endless blue, no smoke, No masts, no wakes. Nothing. The pilot tightens his jaw. They should be here. Intelligence had placed at least 3 carriers at Pearl Harbor: Enterprise, Lexington, Saratoga. 3. Where did they go? Below deck on Akagi, younger officers celebrate. Rice bowls, cigarettes, laughter. One of them boasts, "The Americans will beg for peace now. Their navy is finished." Another nods, "Without Pearl Harbor they cannot fight." But Nagumo isn't celebrating. He stands alone over the map table. Little wooden markers represent ships. Red for Japan. Blue for America. He slides the blue battleships aside. Destroyed. But then he pauses. 3 blue markers remain untouched. Carriers. Still somewhere on the board. Still moving. And suddenly the victory feels incomplete. Like firing a rifle and missing the heart. He whispers to himself, "If they live, this war is not over." Out across the Pacific, hidden beyond the horizon, USS Enterprise cuts through the water at 20 knots. Her flight deck is busy. Pilots joke, deck crews refuel Wildcats, the radio room hums. They haven't heard the news yet. They don't know Pearl Harbor is burning. They don't know the world just changed. They don't know they are now the most valuable target in the entire Pacific. Because somewhere behind them, Japanese search planes are spreading wider. Closer. Hungry. And the ocean is only so big, the sea is too calm. That's what Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey notices first. Too calm for a world that's supposed to be ending. USS Enterprise plows west through a lazy Pacific swell, her bow slicing water into soft white spray. The deck smells like hot oil and coffee. Mechanics joke over the clang of tools. A Wildcat engine coughs to life, then settles into a steady growl. It feels like any other Sunday morning at sea. Routine, boring even. Which makes it worse. Because no one knows yet. Down in the radio shack, a young radioman named Harold Dixon leans closer to his headset. Static. Then, fragments. Broken Morse. Panicked. Air raid Pearl, this is not drills. He freezes. Rewinds the tape. Listens again. Repeat, Pearl Harbor under attack. For a moment, nobody speaks. The words don't make sense. Attack. Here. Hawaii is supposed to be safe. It's the rear, the sanctuary. He rushes the message up the ladder 2 steps at a time. By the time it reaches the bridge, the mood changes like a snapped wire. Captain George D. Murray reads the dispatch once. Then again. His jaw tightens. "General quarters," he says quietly. The alarm bell explodes through the ship. Clang, clang, clang. Everything stops. Coffee mugs drop. Cards scatter across the deck. Men sprint. Boots thunder on steel. You can feel the ship wake up, like a sleeping animal realizing something is wrong. Very wrong. On the flight deck, McCluskey grabs binoculars and stares toward the horizon, as if he might somehow see smoke hundreds of miles away. Pearl Harbor. His home port. Friends, ships, men he drank with last night before sailing. Now maybe gone. A petty officer runs up. "Sir, if Pearl's been hit." He doesn't finish. He doesn't have to. Everyone thinking it. If the Japanese struck Pearl, and we're the only carrier nearby, then we're next. Within minutes, the deck becomes chaos, controlled chaos. Ordnance crews drag bombs into place. .50 cal ammo belts clatter into gun bays. Wildcats and Dauntless dive bombers are pushed into launch position so fast sparks fly off the deck. No speeches. No drama. Just speed. Pure urgent speed. Because every man aboard understands one thing. They are no longer a ship. They are bait. Hundreds of miles away, Admiral Nagumo stares out across the same ocean. The celebration is gone. The silence feels heavier now. His reconnaissance reports trickle in. Nothing south. Nothing east. Nothing west. The American carriers have vanished like ghosts. Staff officers whisper possibilities. Perhaps still in harbor. Perhaps sunk. Nagumo shakes his head. No wreckage reported. No burning decks. No radio chatter. Which means only one thing. They escaped. And somewhere out there, they're hunting us too. Back aboard Enterprise, the first scout planes launch. SBD Dauntless dive bombers roar down the deck one by one, lifting into the morning sky with a violent shudder. Each pilot scans the endless blue below, searching for wakes, smoke, shadows. Anything. From 2,000 feet, the Pacific looks empty. Deceptively peaceful. But everyone knows an enemy fleet could be just beyond the curve of the Earth. 10 miles. 20. One mistake and you're staring at torpedoes. One mistake and this ship becomes another Arizona. Inside his cockpit, Ensign Dick Best wipes sweat from his gloves. He's flown combat drills 100 times. This feels different. This feels real. The ocean below looks too big to protect anyone. Too empty to trust. He mutters to himself. Come on, where are you? Because finding the Japanese first might be the only thing that saves Pearl Harbor. Or what's left of it. Hours pass. Nothing. Just sun glare. Just waves. Just the slow burn of tension. Men start to wonder something else now. A worse thought. What if we're already too late? Back at Pearl Harbor, smoke still rises. Survivors pull bodies from the water. Oil coats everything like black snow. But in the harbor office, intelligence officers pin fresh maps to the wall. Red arrows. Probable Japanese retreat routes. And one note circled hard in pencil. Enemy failed to locate carriers. That changes everything. Because those carriers, Enterprise, Lexington, Saratoga, are no longer just ships. They are the entire war. If they live, America can strike back. If they die, the Pacific belongs to Japan. As afternoon approaches, a scout plane from Enterprise radios in. The voice crackles through static. Possible contact, bearing 320 smoke on horizon. Every man on the bridge goes still. Captain Murray grips the rail. How many ships? Pause. Static. Then. Can't confirm, but it's something big. McCluskey feels his pulse hammering. This is it. Either they've found the Japanese fleet, or the Japanese have just found them. And out there, beyond the blue curve of the world, someone is about to see someone first. The sun is dipping low over the Pacific. You can almost taste the salt and hear the hum of engines vibrating through steel decks. Enterprise rolls gently with the swell, the deck crowded with men whose faces are tight with concentration. Every lookout scans the horizon, eyes flicking between the infinite blue and the haze on the water's edge. Scout planes circle overhead, each one a fragile thread connecting the ship to the empty ocean. They report nothing. No smoke trails, no fleets, nothing. Lieutenant Commander McCluskey leans on the railing, binoculars pressed to his eyes. He watches the horizon like a hawk, each wave sparkling in the late afternoon sun. The ocean looks calm, almost friendly, but he knows better. Somewhere out there, Japanese eyes are searching, engines low and silent, hopping to catch the Americans by surprise. And then it hits him. They haven't found us, not yet. The word ripples down through the ship like electricity. Relief? Maybe, but it's tempered by fear. The silence itself is dangerous. Each minute of nothingness could be the calm before a storm that might crush them all. Hundreds of miles north, on the flight deck of Akagi, Admiral Nagumo paces. The celebration has vanished entirely. Reports arrive slowly, each one like a dripping faucet. No carrier sighted here, no carrier there, contact uncertain. A young officer hesitates, eyes wide. "Sir, perhaps they've returned to Pearl." Nagumo shakes his head sharply. "Impossible. Pearl is destroyed. If they were there, we would know. And if they're not, then—" his voice trails off. The staff knows the thought he cannot finish. The American carriers are alive, mobile, invisible. Somewhere out there they could strike at any moment. The room goes silent. No one breathes. Then one officer whispers, barely audible, "We may have won the morning, but the war is far from over." And just like that, the tide of victory that seemed so certain in the morning begins to feel precarious. Back aboard Enterprise, the tension thickens. Pilots prepare for patrols. Bombs are loaded. Fuel tanks checked and double-checked. Men move with mechanical precision, but their eyes are drawn constantly to the horizon, to every shadow, every ripple. In the radio room, Dixon listens. Every static crackle sends a spike of adrenaline through him. They are alive, but for how long? Then the message comes. A scout plane reports smoke on the horizon. Bearing 320, something big cannot identify. Every officer freezes. Captain Murray grips the rail so hard his knuckles whiten. McCluskey whispers under his breath, "Is this them?" It could be the Japanese fleet, or it could be nothing. A cloud, a reflection, a trick of the sun. But right now, every man feels it, that edge of uncertainty, the hair-on-fire sensation that could decide life or death in a single decision. And while they wait, unaware, across the Pacific, Japanese reconnaissance pilots are becoming frantic. They circle the empty ocean again and again, scanning for wakes, searching for the signature of the carriers. Their instructions are clear. Find the American carriers, sink them, destroy the only assets capable of turning the tide. But all they find is emptiness. And emptiness is worse than defeat. Because they begin to doubt. "Where are they?" one pilot mutters, throat dry. "We must be blind. They cannot simply vanish." For every hour they fail, the psychological pressure tightens. The men begin to whisper, to fear that the carriers are not just somewhere, they are somewhere dangerous, somewhere hunting, somewhere ready to strike back. Meanwhile, McCluskey moves across the flight deck. The deck shudders as engines roar. The Wildcat fighters prepare to lift. Dive bombers taxi toward the catapult. Every man moves with the certainty that only fear can give. And then someone shouts, "Contact, bearing 310, smoke off the starboard bow." The ship erupts into controlled chaos. Engines roar louder, pilots jump into cockpits, crew brace. They cannot see yet whether it's friend or foe. Every second stretches into eternity. Every wave looks like a threat. Every shadow a potential attack. McCluskey grips the binoculars. His heart pounds. Is it them, or have we finally walked into the trap? And out there on the horizon, the ocean holds its secrets. The carriers are alive, and for now invisible. But the Japanese are searching, and the hunt has begun. The sun is low, and the water gleams like molten metal. On Enterprise, every man knows something unspoken. The war isn't over, but it has changed. Lieutenant Commander McCluskey leans over the bridge rail, feeling the spray on his face. It stings. The wind smells of salt, oil, and something heavier, inevitability. He watches the horizon, scanning, calculating. One wrong move and this ship, the last intact carrier nearby, could vanish in fire and steel. Below him, the deck crews move with feverish precision. Ordnance men drag 500-pound bombs into the ready racks. Mechanics tighten every bolt on every Wildcat, every dauntless. The engines roar in anticipation. Every man on the deck knows the invisible threat lurking somewhere beyond the horizon could strike at any moment. And then the realization hits the officers in the radio room. "Sir, the Japanese are blind," Dixon whispers, almost afraid to breathe. "Blind?" Murray asks. "Yes, sir. They didn't find the carriers. They didn't even see us." Murray leans back, slow exhale, then a flash of understanding crosses his face. The carriers, they are alive, and in this vast ocean, invisibility is power. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles north, Admiral Nagumo's staff wrestles with the impossible. Reports continue to trickle in. No contact. Nothing. The carriers are gone, not sunk, not in Pearl, not even sighted. Nagumo's hand hovers over the map. Blue markers for the carriers are gone. They are ghosts, phantoms moving through the Pacific. He realizes the magnitude. The Japanese fleet struck a victory at Pearl, yes, but the real enemy, the teeth of the American Navy, remain unscathed. If the carriers live, every plan, every projection of dominance is now at risk. For the first time that morning, Nagumo feels doubt. The same doubt the men on Enterprise feel. Only they feel it as fear. He feels it as strategy unraveling. Out on the horizon, scout planes report again. Smoke bearing 305, large, impossible to identify. The bridge goes silent. Every officer squints. Every man holds his breath. It could be the Japanese fleet. It could be nothing. Then someone points, a small ripple of smoke moving slowly across the horizon. Not a cloud, not a reflection, something solid, something alive. The realization hits like a hammer. The hunt is on. Enterprise is not just surviving, she is now the predator. Every man aboard feels it. The carriers aren't just ships. They are leverage power, the only thing standing between Japan and absolute dominance of the Pacific. And the Japanese don't even know it. Back on Akagi, Nagumo makes his fateful decision. The Japanese fleet cannot find the carriers today. Perhaps tomorrow they will. Perhaps the next day. But the opportunity to crush them at Pearl is lost. The teeth of America's Navy live. Every staff officer feels it. Every deckhand senses it. There is a quiet shift in the air from victory to unease. The wind carries it. The ocean carries it. Even the flags flutter differently, as if the sea itself knows something is about to change. Nagumo orders reconnaissance planes to widen their sweep. They leave the carriers' positions uncertain, extending the search in every direction. But the reality remains. The Americans are gone, and for the moment, untouchable. On Enterprise, McCluskey orders the first offensive patrols. The Wildcat fighters roar off the deck, slicing the air in perfect formation. Dive bombers follow, engines screaming, ready to scout, to strike, to survive. Every man aboard feels the weight of what has just happened. A sneak attack intended to cripple the Pacific Fleet missed its most dangerous targets by mere chance. And now the Pacific War has a new rhythm, one where America's carriers will stalk the Japanese fleet, unseen, untouchable, ready to exact revenge. McCluskey exhales. His hands tighten on the binoculars. The battle is over for Pearl Harbor. But the real war, it is just beginning. And somewhere in that infinite blue, the Japanese pilots begin to grasp a terrifying truth. The prey is gone, and the hunter has emerged. Twilight settles over the Pacific. The water glows gold, the sky bruised purple and red. On Enterprise, every man moves like shadows across the deck. The roar of engines fades into quiet anticipation. Tonight there will be no rest, no casual chatter, only the constant hum of awareness, knowing that somewhere eyes are searching for them but cannot find them. Lieutenant Commander McCluskey leans on the railing, binoculars raised. He scans. The horizon is endless. Not a ripple betrays the presence of the Japanese fleet, not a puff of smoke, nothing. Yet he knows it's there, somewhere waiting, watching, hunting. And in this vast ocean, being invisible is a weapon unlike any other. North, Admiral Nagumo's officers grow restless. Messages come in, sporadic and confusing. One float plane reports a shadow in the water. Another sees smoke on the horizon that disappears into the distance. The carriers cannot be confirmed. The Japanese pilots begin to whisper among themselves, panic hidden behind protocol and respect. The reality hits like cold steel. They have no idea where the Americans are. A single miscalculation could bring death. The confidence of the morning is gone, replaced by tension, doubt, fear. Victory at Pearl is meaningless if the enemy still lives, still moves, still hunts. Back aboard Enterprise, Ensign Dick Best checks the dauntless dive bombers. Engines purr, fuel lines hum, ordnance gleams in the dying light. Every man knows what's at stake. The Japanese have no idea. They think they've won. They don't. Best imagines the enemy searching the horizon, floundering. They've struck a fleet but missed the real target, and for that they will pay. McCluskey's eyes sweep over the men on deck. Fear is there, yes, but so is resolve. Every man understands the unspoken truth. They are now the spearhead of America's revenge. And then the first sign appears. A single scout plane cracks the horizon. A small puff of smoke far, far away, not enough to define size, not enough to give away intent, but it is something. The bridge erupts in quiet, urgent movement. Officers check charts. Binoculars swing back and forth. Every man's pulse jumps. Could this be the Japanese fleet finally spotting them? Or is it another phantom, another trick of the sun and water? The question hangs over the ship like a storm cloud. Below deck, radiomen transmit and receive messages. Codes fly through the air. One radio operator glances up, face pale. "Sir, I think they know we're out here." McCluskey doesn't answer. He watches, waits. Every second stretches. The ship itself seems to hold its breath. Because out in the infinite blue, the game has changed. The hunters have become the hunted. And in this vast ocean, no one knows who will strike first. For the Japanese pilots who attacked Pearl Harbor just hours ago, the target they hope to destroy is alive, mobile, and invisible. And the real nightmare is just beginning. Night falls over the Pacific. Enterprise rocks gently on the dark water, deck lights casting long shadows over the men. Silence dominates, punctuated only by the occasional clank of metal, the soft hiss of steam, and the distant call of a lookout reporting a false wake. The ocean is calm, almost too calm. The Japanese fleet is out there somewhere, and they don't know where. Lieutenant Commander McCluskey walks the length of the flight deck. Every footstep echoes. He stops at the bow, watching the black horizon. He thinks of Pearl Harbor burning, shattered, lost. And yet here they are, the only intact carriers nearby, untouched by fate, untouched by fire, by chance, by accident. Chance, that single word carries weight heavier than steel. Thousands of miles north, Admiral Nagumo finally comprehends the magnitude of what has happened. The carriers he sought, the teeth of the American Navy, are gone, invisible, untouchable. For the first time, the full scale of his mistake sinks in. Pearl Harbor was a victory, yes, but without destroying Enterprise, Lexington, and Saratoga, Japan's strategic advantage is incomplete. He looks at the maps. Blue markers for the carriers are gone. Red markers for his own fleet seem smaller now. The morning's confidence has dissolved into doubt. He realizes something historians would later confirm. Had the Japanese located and destroyed these carriers, the Pacific War might have been very different. Instead, they had missed. By luck, by accident. And that miss would echo through the years. On Enterprise, McCluskey addresses the officers. "Gentlemen, the enemy believes the carriers are destroyed. They're wrong. We have a chance, a responsibility to strike back. Prepare for reconnaissance. Prepare for anything." The men nod, tension tempered by resolve. They are not heroes yet, but in that moment they understand the power of survival, the weapon of invisibility. Every wildcat fighter, every dauntless dive bomber, every man on deck becomes part of a silent promise. The carriers live, and they will fight again. Across the ocean, Japanese reconnaissance planes continue fruitless sweeps. Pilots curse the sea, curse the clouds, curse themselves. Hours turn to days. Nothing, no contact, no confirmation. Every hour they fail strengthens the Americans' advantage. The hunt becomes obsession. Fatigue sets in. Confidence erodes. The invisible carriers cast a shadow over Japanese strategy before the war had truly begun. And that shadow would define the Pacific theater. Back on Enterprise, McCluskey leans on the rail again, binoculars down. The stars reflect off the water. Silence reigns. He allows himself a moment to feel the weight of it. The ships destroyed at Pearl Harbor, the men lost, the smoke still rising miles away. And yet, here they are, alive. By luck, by chance, by the fragile sliver of fate that separates disaster from survival. The realization settles over the men quietly but powerfully. The carriers are no longer just ships. They are symbols, ghosts, predators in the vast blue. And somewhere, far away, the Japanese pilots, the ones who thought victory was assured, are beginning to understand. The war is far from over, and the hunter they never saw is already out there, waiting. The Pacific is vast, the carriers are few, and one simple fact will shape the coming years of conflict. The teeth of the American Navy live. Silent, invisible, dangerous. And for the Japanese fleet, the real nightmare has just begun.